watching Well Traveled Life with Jonathan and Jennifer. We are back in Darwin to finish up our helicopter pub crawl. We hope you watched the first video where we did an overview of Darwin and we took you to the Crab Claw Island Resort. We're on our way now to 3 more fabulous Darwin destinations. As a reminder, Darwin is the capital of Northern Territory and is at the top of the continent of Australia, closer to Indonesia, East Timor, and Papua New Guinea than it is to any other state capital in the country. This remote location gives Darwin a special connection to its Aboriginal roots, as well as a really interesting regional character. But this video is about the 3 more stops on our helicopter pub crawl. We've already been to Crab Claw Island Resort, and we're headed now to the Darwin River Tavern. Jonathan and I switched places, so I'm now in the front seat where there are no doors. Aiden from Nautilus Aviation is our pilot as well as our pub crawl guide. We were here at the beginning of January, which is the beginning of the wet season for this part of the country. That meant that there had been quite a few storms and a lot of rain. The rivers are normal here, but you will see throughout this video the floodplains were really flooded. In fact, some of our stops were almost canceled because of the amount of water. And as you go inland, you get a sense of how remote this area is. There are very few roads, and those that are often aren't paved. The rains will keep the grounds green so that everywhere on our flight we saw these brilliant shades and variations on the theme of green. As we got closer to the Darwin River, you could see the amount of agriculture. There were mangoes, tropical fruits, as well as lots of fields for corn and soy and cotton. As we approach the Darwin River Tavern, you're going to see that other famous Darwin icon, the termite mound. We were flying above them. You can see the size, the shape, and the vast numbers of them. We landed right next to the tavern and right next to a termite mound.
Obviously through the magnetic force fields in the ground, they build their mound facing north because they're quite thin, they don't have a lot of surface area, so as the sun, they try and stay at like a constant temperature throughout the day. So as the sun rises from the eastern side will start warming up. As soon as it gets to about midday, 1 o'clock, because it's quite thin, it'll start cooling back down because there's no surface area. And then as the sun sets, the western side will start heating back up again. So they'll try and remain constant temperature throughout the day. And then these ones here, see they've got the galleries on the side, so the wind will hit that and the wind will run up and down the mound, cooling it down this way. Yeah, they did a study on some of the mounds around here last year. And they found that a lot of them have got like interconnecting tunnels underneath the ground, and some of them span over like kilometres. Yeah, so I don't know if they're using each other's mound, but there's all galleries and they all talk to each other all underneath the ground. The magnetic ones are only found in this small section and nowhere else in Australia, so just up this way.
The wet season is the slow season.
So this is sort of a tavern on your way out towards the Adelaide River. You can camp here as well. They've got like a thing for locals this time of year, you can camp for free, and food and swimming pool.
Well, there isn't any fancy signage outside. The inside's got a lot of fun stuff going on. It's a Coopers. It's good. Yeah.
Darwin River Tavern is nice, but you mainly just go there to get something to eat if you guys are hungry.
With the regular menu and daily specials, we thought the food here was really great, but you need to be early enough so they don't run out of things. I was going for the pork belly burnt ends, and they were out of them by the time we ordered. Aiden is usually here once a week on these pub crawl trips. He knew what to get, and we think the steak sandwich was a total win. With a swimming pool, waterfalls, and an arcade area, the tavern is a great gathering place for camper vanners. In our first video, we had met a really fun family at Crab Claw Island Resort. Well, how fun was it that they followed us to the tavern and we got to see them again.
Hey, thanks you guys so much.
So here's a shout out to our favorite girls in the Northern Territory. Hey ho! And if you guys are seeing this, comment below. Let's stay in touch. We're headed now to Goat Island Lodge, which is our 3rd stop.
Crab Claw and Kai, probably the most scenic ones.
We will be meeting King Kai and maybe Casey the crocodile.
This time of year, say females will go to nest. She'll go and lay her eggs, and then she'll stay nearby. Kai, he's usually got a resident crocodile that will come up next to the pub. And she's usually there every day. As long as the tide's high enough, she can get up onto the bank. But this time of year, she goes to nest. Will disappear for a few months. She might be there today.
Mining operations in Northern Territory producing lead, silver, bauxite, copper, gold, and in the past there was uranium and there is a new mine for lithium. So we flew across the Darwin Hills in the wide open spaces of the interior. We were mesmerized by the rolling hills, which would then give way and dip down into the floodplains. Feral or wild horses called brumbies have been in Australia since the first white settlers came to the area with their domesticated horses that got set free, and they have created sort of an environmental issue because they compete with native animals for food, vegetation, and they are hard on the soil. So as much as we enjoyed seeing them, the brumbies are sort of considered a problem in Australia. Our next stop is Goat Island, and this is actually an island in the river. You can only get here by boat or by helicopter, and it is surrounded by crocodile-infested waters. Kai Hansen, a transplant from Denmark from decades ago, has come up here and opened up a lodge. He's got rooms available for overnight stays. He's got a kitchen where he will sell food, and he's got a bar.
You didn't know where it was, and sort of a bit hard to see.
But a lot of people are just coming up here to meet King Kai. He's a legend. He's a character.
Oh, it's a pretty unique place. It's definitely, pretty out there. So everything he says, don't take him seriously. Kai's a character, just letting you guys know that. Yeah, he's a bit of a character. Be careful, obviously there's a few sort of holes around, because this whole island's sort of made of mud. As it dries out, it starts cracking.
And if Aiden's warnings weren't enough, there were signs along the path to get to the lodge. Not all of the signage was funny. Some had a much more serious message. The helicopter pad and path into the lodge had been wiped out by rains, completely covered the week before we got there. So we still had to brave an awfully muddy trail to get into the lodge.
Yeah, it's quite slippery through there. You've got the bamboo to hold on to.
But it's all part of the Goat Island experience. Goat Island, Kai, and Casey the crocodile have an international reputation. I'm going to let somebody else tell the whole story because it really did make the news. This video comes from Sunrise at 7, a broadcast station in Sydney.
For our next story, we travelled far and we travelled wide, all the way from Darwin across the Adelaide River to a little place called Goat Island.
There lives a bloke known to locals as King Kai. He's gone viral for fighting off a crocodile with a frying pan. This is his wild story you have to see to believe. It's the video that changed Kai Hansen's life forever.
Check out this Australian guy who fights off a saltwater crocodile with a frying pan.
Making headlines across the globe, from CNN to the India Express. The video is also racking up millions of views on social media.
So here he comes and he's like, no, mate, what? And he gets him twice, and maybe he just had an itchy nose and they're homies.
Some call him Budget Crocodile Dundee. Others say he's crazy. But in Darwin, he's simply known as King Kai, the owner of Goat Island Lodge.
I treated her the only way I know how to treat an acro croc. A good smack on the nose with a frying pan.
Kai even recreated the moment just for us.
It was happened just here. Just here. I stood there, Casey was laying there, and people were going to walk out. No problem.
The publican was fighting off a croc. He's named Fred.
Fred is the only problem croc, and it's only because he's now bigger than Casey.
Casey is Kai's pet. Well, sort of.
Casey, look at Daddy. Oh, yeah, you are such a pretty girl, aren't you?
She's been hanging around the lodge for 3 decades, long before Kai arrived.
She's a beautiful girl. She has the most lovely smile.
But Casey hasn't always been a good girl. She ate Kai's dog when the pooch got a little too close one day. Now he has a replacement named Mutt.
I can tell you what, I have learned that you can live without your wife, but life is miserable in a place like this without your dog.
Kai wouldn't change a thing about his beloved crocs, especially Casey. As for Fred, well, he hasn't been back since.
A crocodile has only got two really sensitive spots. They got this hard skin and you can't really do anything, but the eyes and the nose are the sensitive spots on the croc. So, a good smack on the nose, which is the first part of the croc that I can reach, worked.
What a character.
I don't even know what to say. Imagine what the world is going to think of us now. Exactly.
Good old
Thanks for
Casey,
the
the pet croc, unfortunately ate the other dog. But, you know,
Them's the breaks.
that's the law of the jungle.
Up there in the heartland. That's what happens.
Oh, goodness.
So we met Kai's new dog, and while he is very good about staying up on the deck and does not go out and bother the crocodiles, he does have another problem. He's apparently a bit of a drinker.
Just be careful with Muddy. He'll drink your beer from the table.
He got a hold of my empty beer bottle and thought he would join the pub crawl, I suppose. When I took the beer bottle away, he and Kai had a bit of a standoff. Goat Island was everything we'd been warned about and more. Kai, Bud, and Casey made it memorable for sure.
That's the frying pan sitting over there.
Oh, it's good, isn't it? This is like one of the most picturesque pubs that we go to is this one here, Goat Island.
We headed north back towards the city of Darwin to our last pub of the day, the Noonama Tavern. As we flew over the wetlands and floodplains, we encountered another wild animal that is considered a pest. Waterbuffalo were brought in to the Northern Territories as a meat source and for work animals. Those animals weren't always well contained. They have become feral, and they eat a tremendous amount of grass, which removes that food source for native species. They also damage the trees that they regularly rub up against. Additionally, their trampling and soil disturbance spreads weeds across the landscape. As we came into the Noonama Tavern, it was obvious we had hit the Wild West, complete with rodeo grounds and what appeared to be Texas-style cowboys.
To get in, if you just on the left-hand side of where that white car is, there's a little path just behind these trees there that goes to the pub.
Spokes brought us some Noonama Northern Territory swag and showed us a great time.
Yeah, they do frog racing here too.
As this is the end of our pub crawl, let's do a rundown of the beers we've had today. At Crabcod Island, our first stop, we started with ginger beer and a James Boag lager.
The Matzos, which is those ginger beers, they're from Broome. That's James Boag's, that one there. That's the Tasmanian beer.
Now, I know the next video you should watch, our video on either Broome or Tasmania. At the Darwin River Tavern, we got a Coopers Ale to go with our lunch. And on Goat Island, it seemed only appropriate that we would have the Mountain Goat Organic Steam Ale, which comes from Sydney. And finally, at the Noonama Tavern, we got two different beers. We got a Great Northern and a 4X Gold.
Oh yeah, yeah. Right, that's what I drink for X Gold. It's sort of just easy on those.
While this wasn't a typical tasting where you have flights of beer, we didn't have a bad beer all day. They were all good, and they were from all over the country, and that made it kind of fun as well. In a part of the world where you have tropical heat, I think Jonathan summed up the beer tasting best.
I think the fact that they're really cold
Yeah.
Helps them be really good.
is starting off about a hint.
Thanks, folks.
All right.
Thanks very
See you later.
And with that, it's the end of our time at the Australian Rodeo, and we need to head back to the airport. Keep in mind that if you are doing this from a cruise ship, you need to allow at least 20 minutes to get from the airport back to the cruise port. And you might want to allow more if you're at rush hour time of the day.
Yeah, gonna go up and then try and turn.
Don't say try. I need you to just like go for turn.
Turn.
We mentioned in the first video that a lot of what Aiden and Nautilus Aviation does is they provide hella fishing trips. That doesn't mean like hella good fishing, although it probably is that. It's helicopter fishing.
A majority of our stuff is heli-fish, so we just do fishing tours. So this time of year, it's mainly barramundi. This time of year, the barramundi go to spawn, so they're starting to come back on the bite. The recent rain hasn't helped. The last few months have been pretty hard fishing. But usually we go, so there's a sort of a spot, an hour flight south of Darwin, along the coast. And so Aboriginal community own this land. And we got an agreement with them. We're allowed to land and fish there and give them royalties for it.
Okay.
And so we'll go down there, spend the day down there and fish for barramundi. Or if not, we do like a half day, so just 6 hours, and we'll go sort of the northern side of Darwin.
That's
and
good.
fish there. Yeah, it's good. It's just lures. So just casting. You use the fish like tidal creeks near the mangroves.
One of the really fun parts about having a private tour with a local guide is that you can ask questions about the things that interest you, and you get to explore the stuff that you might not otherwise find out. So for Jonathan, that was cricket.
Oval boundary, so it's the oval field, and there's a line on the outside. So if you hit a ball on the full, so if it doesn't bounce and you hit it over that line, you get 6 runs, which means...
It's like our home run.
Exactly, yeah. So you get like, it equals to like a person running up and down 6 times. And if you hit it along the ground and it hits the boundary, that equals 4 runs. There's a pitch where they bowl the ball on, so there's 2 people, there's one at either end. So if you hit the ball, you got to run to this end, and then that guy's got to run to this end. That's 1 run. A metre before the end of the pitch, there's a line. If you don't make it to that line and someone throws the ball, like from the opposite team, and hits those wickets, I mean, they look like stumps, metal. If he hits them and you haven't made that line, then you're out. Or if you catch the ball that you've hit on the full, you're out. There's 11 players, so you got to get them all out. You got to get 9 of them out. So the last 2 remaining, you have to have 2 people playing, 2 people running. So as soon as you get them all out, there's 11 people. So you got to get 10 people out. So they play a few different types. So this one here is called a both series. So this goes through twice. So it can take up to 5 days to play this one. So you'll be on every day. Yeah. For 5 days. And then you've got a 1-day match, and you're allowed to bowl a certain amount of balls. I mean, you've got to get each team out once. And then you have a 20-20, which they're only allowed to bowl a short amount of balls, and it usually only lasts about 3 hours.
So thanks to Aiden, I think we got the general grasp of cricket. 3-hour games versus 5-day games, I kind of know where I'm going. But if Australian football is the national sport, cricket is definitely the international sport. As we finish our trip around the top end, we get a basics in helicopter flying.
Our flying is done visually, so we're not allowed to fly through clouds. If you want to fly through clouds, you've got to do another license, and the helicopter has to be equipped with the instruments to be able to fly through clouds. Across the runway, yeah. We're a helicopter, so as long as you got permission from the tower, you can come in and take off any direction, as long as they've given you approval for it. You don't have to follow sort of circuit traffic like the aeroplanes do, just because we're able to, sort of stop and hover and things like that, and slow down.
We could not have asked for a better day, better weather, a better pilot, a better place to visit. This was an absolutely awesome experience.
Just seeing the country. Well, this has been great.
I'm glad you guys enjoyed it.
It's the flight.
So,
He'll be in touch.
awesome.
Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. I'm glad you guys have enjoyed it.
In case you missed the first part of our pub crawl, make sure you go back and watch that video too. You don't want to miss Crab Claw Island.